I never thought I'd be the guy telling one of these stories, but here we are. I've lived in Sycamore Estates for nearly 7 years, and it's been mostly peaceful. Our neighborhood has a homeowners association, HOA for short, that handles community matters. When I first moved in, the rules seemed reasonable. Keep your lawn tidy, no eyesore decorations, standard stuff. Then everything changed when Patricia Wilkins, or as everyone now calls her, Karen, became the HOA president last year. From day one of her presidency, Patricia made it clear she wasn't just enforcing rules, she was creating her own personal kingdom. She'd patrol the neighborhood in her white Lexus SUV, notepad in hand, documenting every blade of grass that dared grow a quarter-inch too tall. I managed to stay under her radar for months until I decided to install a beautiful in-ground pool in my backyard. I followed every procedure, submitted the plans, got approval from the architectural committee, obtained the proper city permits, everything by the book. The pool was completed last month, just in time for the summer heat. My troubles began when I hosted a small barbecue for some colleagues from work. Nothing wild, just 6 adults enjoying burgers and taking occasional dips in the pool on a Saturday afternoon. Around 4 p.m., I noticed Patricia standing at the edge of my property, taking photos with her phone. I waved politely, but she just glared and walked away. That should have been my first warning sign. 3 days later, I received an official HOA violation notice in my mailbox. According to Patricia, my pool represented an unauthorized water feature that exceeds the acceptable recreation facility dimensions outlined in Covenant Section 12.4. This was absurd. I had written approval from the previous HOA board. I called Patricia to clear up the confusion, but the conversation went nowhere. The previous board was far too lenient, she told me with a tone dripping with condescension. I've reviewed your application and determined the dimensions are 5 inches deeper than what's allowed. You'll need to modify the pool or face daily fines of $50. I tried to explain that modifying an in-ground pool would cost thousands, and that the previous board had explicitly approved the exact dimensions. Patricia wasn't interested in reason. Rules are rules, she said dismissively. You have 14 days to comply. Then she hung up. I immediately contacted other board members who confirmed my pool was fully approved and suggested Patricia was overstepping her authority. They promised to discuss it at the next meeting, which was scheduled for the following week. I thought that would be the end of it. I was catastrophically wrong. The next morning, I left for a 3-day business trip. I distinctly remember checking that everything in the house was secure, including setting my home security system with cameras. When I returned late Thursday night, I was exhausted and went straight to bed without looking at the backyard. It wasn't until Friday morning when I stepped outside with my coffee that I discovered something unbelievable. My pool was empty. Completely drained. At first, I thought there must have been some kind of leak or mechanical failure, but when I checked the pump room, I found evidence that someone had manually overridden the system and drained the entire pool. Who would do such a thing? Then I remembered the security cameras. I pulled up the footage on my phone, and there it was, Patricia, in broad daylight, entering my backyard with what looked like a pool maintenance company. She was directing them as they connected equipment to my pool system. The timestamp showed this happened Wednesday afternoon, the day after I left town. I was livid. This went beyond HOA overreach. This was criminal trespassing and vandalism. The cost to refill the pool would be substantial, and there could be structural damage from improperly draining it. I called Patricia immediately. "Oh, you're back," she said, sounding completely unconcerned. "Since you refused to address the violation, the board took action on your behalf." The board? Or just you, Patricia? I asked, trying to keep my voice level despite my anger. Because I spoke with 2 other board members who said my pool was fully compliant. "Well, they were mistaken," she replied curtly. "As president, I have emergency authority to remedy violations that could impact community property values. You trespassed on my property and potentially damaged a $40,000 installation," I said. "I have the entire thing on video. This isn't an HOA matter anymore, it's a criminal one." Patricia actually laughed at that. "Good luck with that approach," she said with a scoffing tone. "The HOA bylaws give us right of access for remediation. Perhaps you should have read the fine print before moving into a covenant-controlled community." Then she hung up again. I immediately called the police non-emergency line. 911 would have been excessive, and explained the situation. They sent an officer to take my statement and view the security footage. Officer Rodriguez was professional but initially skeptical, suggesting this might just be a civil dispute. That changed when he saw the video evidence and the documentation proving my pool had been properly approved. "This isn't a civil HOA enforcement action," he explained after reviewing everything. "This is criminal trespassing and vandalism. The HOA may have limited right of access for specific purposes, but draining someone's pool without proper authorization isn't one of them." While Officer Rodriguez was still at my house, I received a text from my neighbor Thomas, who served on the HOA board. He was shocked to hear what happened and confirmed that there had been no board vote or discussion about enforcement action against my pool. In fact, he forwarded me an email thread where Patricia had been told explicitly by the HOA's lawyer to stop pursuing the matter since my installation was properly approved. The police officer suggested I file for a temporary restraining order against Patricia while they investigated the case. He also recommended I document all damages and repair costs. Before leaving, he said something that gave me some satisfaction. "We'll be paying Ms. Wilkins a visit today to get her side of the story, but based on what I've seen, she's looking at serious charges." I spent the rest of the day getting estimates for refilling the pool and checking for potential structural damage. The total was coming close to $2,000. Thankfully, the pool company said there didn't appear to be any permanent damage, but they couldn't be certain until the pool was refilled and the system ran for at least 48 hours. Around 6 p.m., I received a call from a blocked number. It was Patricia, and she sounded much less confident than before. "I understand the police visited you today," she said, her voice noticeably shaky. "I want you to know there's been a misunderstanding. The board did authorize remediation for non-compliant water features. I can show you the minutes." "Interesting," I replied calmly. "Because I have an email from the board's attorney specifically instructing you not to take action against my pool. And Thomas confirmed there was never a board vote. So those minutes you're referring to, are they real, or did you fabricate them after the police showed up at your door?" There was a long pause on the line. "Look," Patricia finally said, her tone suddenly conciliatory, "perhaps we can resolve this between us. The HOA can cover the cost of refilling your pool, and we can put this unpleasantness behind us." "I'm afraid it's too late for that," I told her. "This isn't about the money. It's about you abusing your position and breaking the law. The police have the evidence now, and it's in their hands." 2 hours later, Thomas called me with news that spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Patricia had been arrested at her home on charges of criminal trespassing, vandalism, and filing false documents. Apparently, she had indeed created fake meeting minutes after the fact. She was released on bail but had to surrender her key to the HOA office and was temporarily barred from acting in any official capacity. The next morning, I received a formal letter from the remaining HOA board members. They had called an emergency session and voted unanimously to remove Patricia as president, effective immediately. They also agreed to cover all costs associated with restoring my pool and offered a sincere apology for the entire incident. But the consequences for Patricia weren't over. On Monday, I received a call from the district attorney's office. The prosecutor explained that given the evidence, they were pursuing felony charges against Patricia for the vandalism, which exceeded the $1,000 threshold for felony property damage in our state. Additionally, creating falsified HOA documents constituted fraud. When this news became public, Patricia's real estate brokerage, where she worked as a senior agent, placed her on indefinite leave. Apparently, having a real estate agent facing felony charges for property-related crimes wasn't good for their corporate image. I ran into Patricia at the local grocery store a week later. The formerly confident, imperious HOA president was now a shell of her former self. When she saw me, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Are you happy now?" she hissed at me, her grocery basket clutched tightly in her trembling hands. "My career is ruined, I'm facing criminal charges, and my reputation in this community is destroyed, all over a stupid pool that was 5 inches too deep." "No, Patricia," I replied calmly. "It wasn't about the pool. It was about you thinking rules only applied to others, never to yourself. And now you're learning that some rules, like laws against trespassing and vandalism, apply to everyone, even HOA presidents. She stood there speechless, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, as I walked away. The last I heard, she's facing up to $20,000 in legal fees and possible jail time if convicted on all charges. Sometimes justice does come to those who need it most, even the most entitled Karen in the HOA.